Back to the streets, says the opposition. Raila Odinga warns that anti-government demonstrations could resume as early as next week after the end of the holy month of Ramadan, and says this is part of seeking to pile pressure on the government through the protests to run concurrently with the bipartisan parliamentary talks following the picking of the representatives in both teams that will be representing both sides of the political divide. Arnold, it's all again a deja vu, back to the streets. But what will then parallel talks and bipartisan process mean in this case, in the case of stability and the talks that were called for?
Allow me to just quickly build on what Senator Gloria said. She actually feels like Saitabao Kanchori has not, of course, he's misbehaved. She's talking from a corporate world, which is okay. But I actually hold it that Saitabao Kanchori is actually a hero of our democracy. We should actually, he might be bad-mannered, of course, cantankerous even, but he's actually a hero of our democracy and a patriot. Because you see, what we've seen coming from the Azimio side is that this is a delayed pain. You know, like we have got a scuffle in the studio here, we fight and none of us cries, but when I get home, I start crying. As in, Azimio really wanted to weep, or at least release. Somehow they've actually gone round and round and round. So as we try to push this idea that somehow there was blatant theft, somebody's actually pointing us to another direction. We need this balance, we need this truth. So there's also this, you know, there are people who believe in Raila Odinga 100%. Mm-hmm. Those people, whatever is actually said, believe it to be the gospel truth. So even if, for example, the people currently around Baba have organized and have set up a facade of a narrative, those people believe that to the very end. So I do not think that what Kanchori is doing should actually be looked down upon or thought of to be this is how you strengthen democracy. So before you come out and tell us that you have stolen, and you know, it builds into what the point I raised and what Kidi Mwaga has actually just said, that in the Maina Kiai case, they say that the final result is a Form 34A. So what is in the server, is there anything in the server that can impeach Form 34A? So long as Form 34As cannot be impeached, any other thing is noise. And they know that. So we'd rather, like, for example, do these guys even have their own set of Form 34As? They even chose some select polling stations where recounting was done, and there was no variance. So the highest way of actually endorsing an election and decision-making is the people voting. We then had issues. We went to the Supreme Court, the highest court we have. That court actually sided with the people and said that this particular decision. So, when you're talking about what they're talking about, these issues, there are a few issues we must actually say, and say them very, very strongly. That one of the reasons why the demonstrations picked up very fast were 4 reasons. The 4 reasons why the demonstrations a little bit look like they got a little bit of traction. Number 1 is the cost of living, and that the government has been under-communicating. The government communication infrastructure is, in a word, has actually been dead. So, like for example, on June 27th, 28th, and 29th, 2022, Raila Odinga and Martha Karua did a series of press conferences telling off the people who are calling for the cost of living. Then the prices of food were higher than they are today. So government, for example, should actually have gone out and actually just compared the numbers then. When Raila Odinga was calling the people who were complaining about the cost of living and saying that wanabweka. You know, Raila talks about rigging, but he has also rigged this country. The system in this country is actually rigged by him. He talks about him being rigged out of election. But you see, like, for example, the truth is only the truth when he declares that it's the truth. When the cost of living was up there, flour was about 250, 230, and cooking oil was about 500. He told the people walikuwa wanabweka. Now, cooking oil is actually about 250, the same quantity. The flour is between 170 and 200, depending on where you get yours. He now says the cost of living is high. You know, that is how you rig a system. So, going back to the streets, there are a few things I think that we must actually do this. That's number 1. The media space is also very hostile towards government. That is one truth that we cannot run away from. You would just look at the commentaries and everything, even the commentariat.
As it should be.
I'm talking about hostility. You see, oversight is not the same as hostility.
What then do you mean? Because there are very specific issues that you have raised, and On the high cost of living, of course, I'll be giving you some statistics and numbers.
Can I just execute?
Yes, you will finish. You will finish, and allow me also to hold you to account as you proceed. Yes, proceed.
So I was saying that one of the reasons why the demonstrations looked like they were legit was because, honestly, the cost of living is difficult, but the numbers, the absolute numbers, cannot be compared to at the time when the person who's now leading this particular campaign was out there telling us that it was not government's mistake that the cost of living was high. It was about externalities. He even quoted Ukraine and other issues.
Okay.
That was then. And it's on record. On June 27th, 28th, and 29th, Martha Karua and Raila Odinga telling people that the cost of living and the numbers were higher. So I was talking about government under-communicating. So government needs to put their communication infrastructure in place. That has not been functional because literally it's not been consistent because the numbers, you could actually talk about what the government is doing. People are planting, for example. The government has been giving out fertilizer. We now are seeing issues around that. The government has been giving out subsidized seeds and even helping out farmers on those. That has not been communicated, even just to give people hope.
Okay.
Because the situation is difficult.
Thank you.
Then the other bit of it is this. Let me finish with this.
Okay, briefly.
That the police also mismanaged the demonstrations. Let's not also, like, for example, why was it necessary that police officers attack vehicles that were, these are camera guys and everything else? That is mismanagement. You are exacerbating a situation. And by the way, if these guys go back to the street, one of the things that the president must do is actually to organize the National Police Service. Because somehow, I would actually say that the way they mismanaged the first batch of demonstrations, you will say that there was sabotage from within. So he must also ensure that that particular end is actually worked on.
Okay, well noted.
That does it make?
Okay, but to be clear on this, we need an objective media in any democracy for us to thrive.
Yes, and an objective media is not one, for example. Let me say this, and of course at the risk of causing trouble, that there are some of your colleagues who are now probably working for government. You people might have issues, and the people now in government might actually have said some bad things against the media. There are cases, if we are honest, you use the word objective, there are cases where the media has been outrightly hostile towards this particular administration. And of course, it's partly because this particular administration also has not also been very friendly to the media. So they're also human beings. So even as they call them out, it's time also when we talk about being objective, the people working for government communication who have got enemies within the media fraternity should not make the guys in the media the enemies of the state and vice versa.
Okay.